You've heard the advice before. Just build value for the treatment. The consultants all say it. The Facebook groups say it. The Dental Town threads say it. To me, it sounds a little sus. Because let's be honest, great job diagnosing that interproximal lesion on your soccer mom hygiene patient, but she didn't come in for that. She came in for her free cleaning. And now she's looking at you, wondering if this is all some elaborate scheme to pay for your kid's college tuition. The truth is, your business model has a far bigger impact on case acceptance than any magical words you could say. Let's talk about why. The hygiene model, how it went from profitable to a loss leader. Most dentists believe that hygiene is the foundation of their practice. It's how they diagnose enough dentistry to fill their schedule. But this model has massive blind spots. And the biggest one is that it used to work a lot better than it does today. Back in the 1980s, hygiene wasn't just a break-even proposition. It was actually profitable with minimal effort. Why? Because back then, hygiene fees were much higher relative to salaries, PPO plans were far less dominant than they are today, and the cost of running a dental office was significantly lower. A dentist could hire a hygienist, pay them a fair wage, and still turn a profit on hygiene alone. Fast forward, and all of a sudden, dentists had to keep their hygienists busy to turn a profit. But that wasn't so bad. And then, by about 2010, we had to also make sure the hygienist was providing enough fluoride and sealants, and if they did, we could make a profit in hygiene. And here we are now today, where hygienists have to provide fluoride, sealants, make sure 30% of their schedule is perio, never have an opening, and still we might struggle to break even if we're on PPO fee schedules. And let's be real. Few dentists are running their practice that way. Much more common is the scenario where dentists simply can't afford hygiene wages and are even resorting to doing the hygiene themselves, justifying it with the same outdated belief. It's the only way to diagnose enough treatment.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
But here's the problem. If your practice depends on patients coming in for hygiene appointments, especially insurance-driven hygiene appointments, then you're constantly trying to sell comprehensive dentistry to people who only showed up because it was free. Or maybe you've already given up on presenting comprehensive cases, since nobody seemed interested. This is not a recipe for high case acceptance or career fulfillment. Think about it. Why would patients only want what insurance covers? Is it because the majority of the dentistry they consume is hygiene services, which are completely covered by insurance? Think about it. Have they been trained to be completely dependent on their insurance? Are you going to continue practicing this way? Or are you going to take action and do something about it? A better way. Attracting the right patients. Let me tell you about two mechanics, Steve and Andy. Steve had a brilliant idea, or so he thought. He decided to offer super cheap or even free oil changes to get customers in the door. His plan? Once they were there, he'd find other issues and try to upsell them on repairs. The problem? Steve hated changing oil. He found it exhausting, unprofitable, and honestly just not what he wanted to do all day. What he really loved was custom paint jobs, transforming cars into works of art. But instead of attracting people who actually wanted their cars painted, Steve spent his days grinding through oil changes, hoping to convince some of these customers to spring for a full paint job. And unsurprisingly, most of them weren't interested. Now, let's talk about Andy. Andy also loved custom paint jobs, but he took a completely different approach.
I will do the opposite.
Instead of hustling through cheap oil changes, Andy built his reputation around the service he actually wanted to do. He showed off his work all over town, letting people see firsthand how stunning his paint jobs were. Before long, people weren't just admiring Andy's work. They were imagining how amazing their own car would look with a custom paint job. So, when they walked into Andy's shop, they weren't there for an oil change. They were already sold. They just needed to pick the color. Andy's case acceptance? Through the roof. Because his customers weren't just potential buyers, they were excited, motivated, and ready to get the service that he was passionate about delivering. Now, think about dentistry. Most dentists, they're running Steve's business model. They're attracting patients with cheap or free hygiene appointments, then trying to convince them to invest in comprehensive care. But what if instead you ran your practice like Andy's? What if the patients coming through your doors already wanted the high-quality, transformative dentistry that you love to do? They're already aware of their dental problem, they're actively looking for a solution, and they're financially prepared to invest in their care. Wouldn't that make case acceptance a whole lot easier?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Next, the power of persuasion. Now, let's talk about the right kind of patient. She's in her 60s. She hates smiling in photos because she's missing teeth, and her grandkids ask why. One day, she gets a postcard from your office, and it says that you have patients with broken and missing teeth. That message resonates. She checks out your website. It's full of testimonials from people who had similar problems, and they're thrilled with their results. She calls your office. Instead of being grilled about insurance, your team listens to her concerns and reassures her. You called the right place. We help patients like this all the time. By the time she's in your chair, she's already 90% of the way to saying yes. Now compare that to patients who came in expecting a free cleaning and now thinks that you're trying to scam them. Totally different ballgame. Mastering the treatment conversation. Now, even with the right patients, you still need a solid strategy for presenting treatment. Otherwise, you risk losing them at the finish line. Let's walk through a common scenario. A dentist spots a cracked tooth and recommends a crown. Here's how that conversation typically goes.
The filling in your back tooth is cracked. Because it's already such a big filling, it's going to need a crown on it to protect the tooth so that it doesn't break. The crown is made of zirconia, so it will match the tooth. And we even have a mill here in the office so that we can make the crown and deliver it in just one visit. I'll have you talk to Rebecca about your insurance coverage, and she can get you scheduled.
Now, let's break this down because this is where so many dentists lose case acceptance before the patient even considers treatment. First off, the dentist didn't take the time to make sure the patient even understands the problem, let alone cares enough to fix it. If the patient isn't aware and concerned, then jumping straight into a treatment plan recommendation is a waste of time. Most likely they're just nodding along, not realizing why this matters. And then the dentist makes it worse by going straight into technical details about crowns. Look, maybe 10% of patients are engineers who think like dentists and love the technical talk. But the other 90%? They don't care about margins, materials, or bonding agents. What they do actually want to know? Will it hurt? How much will it cost? And how is this going to fix my problem? And here's the kicker. The dentist is also setting up the financial coordinator for failure. This patient came in for a free cleaning, so their mental reference point for dental costs is 0. Now, they're suddenly being told up at the front desk that they need to spend $1,000 on a crown. Of course that feels expensive. It's way more than the patient expected to pay today. What happens? The patient says, "I'll think about it." Instead, here's how this could have gone better. Give the patient good news.
James, Are you aware that you have a cracked filling in one of your upper left teeth?
No, actually I never noticed that before.
It looks like a very old filling. Here's a photo of the tooth. You can see the crack right here. One concern I have is that a crack like this can often spread and cause the tooth to break or become painful at some point in the future. I know that you like to travel, and if this were to happen while you were away, that would be very inconvenient.
Ah, yes. That would be a bummer.
Is it important to you to have this tooth fixed so that you could avoid that risk?
Yes, I think that would be a good idea.
One benefit of treating this soon is that you could avoid needing an implant here. Sometimes when these cracks spread, the whole tooth breaks, and we need to surgically replace it. This costs over $4,000 and takes many appointments. Fortunately for you, at this point we can fix this just by placing a crown on the tooth, which only costs around $1,500 and is much easier than getting an implant.
Yes, that sounds much better to me.
Okay, well, my assistant Robert will go over all the details with you. Robert, James says it's important to him to avoid an unexpected toothache and the possible need for an implant. So he's interested in treating this tooth right away.
Hopefully you can hear just how much better that conversation went. When a dentist learns to present treatment this way, case acceptance skyrockets. It's almost like magic. Patients go from skeptical and hesitant to genuinely relieved that they don't need an implant or a root canal. Compare that to the old way. Same cracked tooth, same clinical situation, but with the wrong wording, the patient walks out thinking, wow, that's expensive. I need to talk to my wife first. Here's what made the difference. The dentist first made sure the patient understood the condition and was actually concerned about fixing it. You need to do this before recommending any kind of treatment. The dentist connected the treatment to a real problem the patient could relate to, like worrying that their tooth might break while traveling. The dentist used the contrast principle, framing the crown as the good news because the alternative could be an implant or something much more complex and expensive. When you frame treatment like this, the conversation shifts. Instead of feeling like they're being sold something, the patient sees it as a solution, one they're relieved to move forward with. The takeaway: systemize your approach. Look, there are only so many treatments you present regularly. Instead of improvising, have a well-rehearsed, effective spiel for your top 5 to 10 procedures. Think of it like theater. Middle school actors rehearse their lines way more than most dentists do. And yet, we actually expect patients to automatically say yes? Case acceptance is a skill, no different than prepping a crown or placing an implant. And like any skill, you can get really good at it with practice. We'd be horrified if a dentist didn't know how to use an apex locator and left all his endofills 3 millimeters short. But the same level of incompetence when it comes to case presentation, stumbling through explaining a crown even years into a career, is pretty much the norm. Practice on Fire is here to change that. And this is just the beginning. If case acceptance isn't something you've mastered yet, stay tuned. I'll be diving deeper into this in future episodes. And if you want to really fast track your success, you can check out our Practice on Fire course. We have hours of content on this topic alone because it's one of the biggest needle movers in dentistry. That's all for today. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. This episode is brought to you by Practice on Fire, a platform dedicated to helping dentists like you conquer your most frustrating career challenges to unlock the path to a thriving practice. Here's the deal. We're all about sharing tons of actionable content for free. We want you to walk away with strategies that make a real difference in your career. But if you're ready to go deeper, to truly transform your practice and life, then our premium platform is your next step. What's inside? At Practice on Fire, we dive into the essential and often overlooked pillars of a successful dental career: business systems. Build efficiency that frees you up to focus on what matters. Marketing. Attract the right patients, the ones who need and value your care. Case acceptance. Master the art of helping patients say yes with confidence. We've got hours of pre-recorded courses, but here's the game changer. An active community that guides you step by step through implementation. No more spinning your wheels in frustration. Think about it. Many dentists invest over 7 figures in their careers between student loans and practice ownership, but they've never invested in the critical skills that make the difference between struggle and success. Visit practiceonfire.com for free downloads, implementation guides, and details about how to take your career and practice to the next level. Want to take the hot seat? Think your practice could use a makeover? Apply to be a guest on our podcast. We'll give you an honest, no-holds-barred evaluation of your practice. Expect raw feedback, a breakdown of your numbers, and a tailored plan to tackle your bottlenecks. Vulnerability is required. Transformation guaranteed. Apply using the link in the show notes. All right, team, your transformation starts here. Let's light this fire.